Kenyan President William Ruto says his administration will not borrow to fund civil servant salaries. Thousands of public service employees are yet to receive their March salaries, and some county government workers are owed up to 3 months' worth of pay.
So our next conversation now. In Kenya, we see President William Ruto's government says it's unable to pay civil servants their March salaries because of financial challenges. Let's talk to
Operations in a majority of counties have been paralyzed following the delayed disbursement of funds from the National Treasury.
For the first time in Kenya's history, the country is not able to pay its workers, and also there's a lot of cash crunch. There's no money going to the counties, which has also paralyzed counties' activities, within the country. And it's a whole lot of crazy thing, but the huge thing that is causing all of this is Kenya's debt. And so today I really got interested to go find out what's happening with Kenya's debt and what's happening with our revenues. Are we having revenue shortfalls? Okay, is it like a debt thing? And it's crazy what I found out. So okay, just before anything, I do a lot of research. A lot of research goes into making these videos. There's a lot of time taken. There's a lot of 1 or 2, 3 resources that I use just to produce these videos. So the best thing that you could do for me right now is hit that subscribe button. And also if you like this video, the best thing that you can do right now is like this video and also share it to friends. And when you like my videos, the videos get recommended to other people. And also when you share, of course, other people get to learn what we learned on this video, and which is probably the place to be. So go ahead and smash that subscribe button and also that like button. And if you like this video, please do share this video. So what is really happening in Kenya that we are not able to pay our salaries? We have such a huge debt problem in the country. Our county governments are not having enough funds to run its operations. According to the Economic Intelligence Update, Kenya's public debt burden is high but not excessive. But anyway, as you can see, is 34% of our entire GDP as of the end of 2022 is for external debt and servicing costs. Okay, the external debt pressures have climbed, really in 2022 due to stringent US monetary tightening. Of course, the Russia-Ukraine war that of course led to a spike in the yields of the Kenyan 6 active Eurobonds, which are worth $7.1 billion in total. So of course the yield surge obliged Kenya to cancel a planned 1 billion euro bond in mid-2022, leading to pressure on foreign exchange reserves and more rapid exchange rate depreciation, which is pushing up the cost of foreign debt servicing. So we have a bond that is going to mature next year, that is 2024, which is worth $2 billion. And of course, this is going to be so crazy. I mean, next year, okay, this is going to be some tough time. Okay, so as of June 2022, our external debt is about 50% of the total public debt that we have as a nation. Okay, so just get it. Now remember, our debt is majorly dollar dominated. So we've had a massive fall of the Kenya shilling, and of course other things like COVID-19 restrictions. So what does that mean? So we are getting more debt, of course, in terms of principal and interest, because every time that the Kenya shilling falls, and we have to exchange through the dollar gains. So we actually have to pay more. So that's why, that is part of the reason that we have more debt right now as a nation. Also, something very, very important to note is that the IMF in 2020 downgraded Kenya's debt risk from moderate to high. So we actually have it harder to borrow loans right now, because every time you have like a high debt risk status, you actually have to pay more interest. And because every time, like it just take it normally. Every if I were to give you some money, but I consider you like a like a high risk status, I'd actually expect you to pay me more, because I'm taking such a huge risk to give you some money. So that is what is also happening in Kenya right now. Now, since IMF downgraded Kenya, we used to be moderate, which is rather okay. Now, when you're high, it's like we have a higher default, and we can. It's easier for us to default our loans, compared to other nations. Yeah. So there's this guy called Odongo Kadongo, who was explaining. Who's okay? He's a financial analyst, and he's explaining the situation to the conversation. He says that Kenya has not witnessed such high levels of indebtedness in recent history, but of course, official sources point to high infrastructure spending, increased recurrent expenditures, payment of that is payment of regular expenses like public wages and interest on loans. Also, things like revenue collection shortfalls and constraints in the institutional capacity for public expenditure management, as some of the reasons for the country's growing debt burden. So, of course, increased reliance on commercial external debt with short tenors. That debt that can must be repaid quickly has put, of course, a lot of pressure on the government to refinance at short intervals and on worsening terms. As I told you, we are at a high risk right now to get loans from external debtors. Okay, so an existing debt must be replaced with a new debt at a higher interest rate. So the higher the rate signals that lenders now have more doubt about getting their money back. Okay. So in June this year, the government has had to abandon, a planned 115 billion Kenyan shillings bond issuance because yield had increased beyond 12.5%, meaning that it would have been too expensive to repay the loans. And of course, thirdly, the government has blamed anticipated economic shocks, which such as drought and COVID-19. Critics have also cited financial impropriety as another possible reason. So they point out that the growth in infrastructure and welfare spending does not match the growth in debt since 2013, and there are no proper records of debt spending. Now, you already know we have been blaming the former regime, that is former President Uhuru's Kenyatta regime was majorly blamed for its appetite for huge loans. And there's a bit of truth to it, because Kenya's debt has been on an upward trajectory since the 80s and the 90s. But of course, there was this huge slump during President Uhuru's regime. So there's CEIC, and this is just a bar graph that shows from 2014 up to even last year, and just you can just get a feeling that for the 10 years that the guy was around, Kenya's loan really surged. So of course, people are really concerned right now that Kenya's debt to its GDP ratio is actually increasing, rather fast. So I also went out and checked. Okay, let's just compare Kenya and other African countries, and let's see how our debt to GDP ratio varies to other countries. And this is from Business Insider Africa. Let's look. This is actually interesting because Eritrea is actually number one in Africa with its national debt standing at 175.1% of the GDP. So that's their debt is almost twice the size of this GDP. Of course, followed by Cape Verde, which is also called Cabo Verde in Portuguese, which is at 160. We have countries like Mozambique at 133. Let's jump to countries like Zambia at 101, Congo at 85, you have Ghana at 83. You also have countries like Guinea-Bissau at 79, Rwanda at 74%, Gabon at 72, and just going down, we see Kenya at number 18. That is just below South Africa and Nigeria. So Kenya's debt to GDP ratio is actually 69 5.7. Okay, so yeah, compared to other countries within the continent, okay, we may say that ours is not as bad, but it still brings the question about Africa having huge debts that we have to pay to external letters. So between 1998 and 2021, the debt roof jumped from $5 billion, that is of course $5 billion in 1998, to 74.9 around there in 2021. So there's this table from worlddata.info that shows the total debt and of course the total debt per capita between Kenya and the European Union. That is Europe. Basically. So you should note that the European Union, of course, has a higher GDP, and of course, they also have a higher GDP per capita, and of course, they have a higher PPP, which is the purchasing power parity, compared to Kenya. That being said, let's just look at the table. So in 1998, Kenya's debt was 5.06 billion US dollars, and the debt per capita was 167 US dollars. Um, and of course, EU's was 14,000. And let's just compare with 2021 with our debt at 74.85 billion US dollars. Our debt per capita is $1,412, and EU's is 33,695. According to the table, that means right now you and I, okay, you other person, you have a public debt of around $1,412. So that's roughly 160,000 that you have as a public debt. Okay, that's even 2021. I don't even know. I don't have the figures for 2023, but you can just imagine what you're talking about. Of course, if you're in the EU, it's a bit higher. That's at 33,695. That's about 4 million Kenya shillings in public debt. But of course, they are producing countries. Of course, they have more money, they have higher GDP, they have better lives. Whatever index you're thinking about, happiness, per capita purchasing power, they're higher than us. Okay, is Kenya in a debt crisis? Maybe. Okay, yeah, in a way, because um, we have been borrowing to finance recurrent expenditure. Just look at this from the Business Daily. This was someone from government. Okay, that says this is another reckless fiscal management and against the PFM Act of 2012, which states that the national government's borrowing shall be used for the purpose of financing development expenditure and not for recurrent expenditure. So, that gives you a point. It's like you right now. If you went and took out a loan so that you could buy food, for instance, it's not sustainable. So you'd say you're in a crisis because usually you just get loans maybe to get a business on, or maybe a car, or maybe a house, something like that. But if you're borrowing so that you could eat, or maybe to travel to where you work or something, that's not sustainable, because how are you going to repay that? You see, if you borrow for, let's say, like an asset, it can pay for itself, or for a business, something, or maybe like a car for taxis or cab or something. You can actually, the business can actually pay for its loan. So now think of it in a nation's term. We are borrowing so that we can pay usually maintenance costs, operational costs, maybe salaries, wages, all this. So that is really, really worrying, of course. So that points, if this trend is to continue, yes, we are in a debt crisis. So also I got this excerpt from Reuters, and this is just what President Ruto was talking about, while formulating the 2022-2023 budget. Um, he said that we must bring ourselves to sanity. And with the kind of borrowing that we have been doing, we have been borrowing to finance recurrent expenditure, adding that the market cannot sustain the kind of borrowing we're doing as a government. And of course, we must bring ourselves to sanity. So, our finance ministry document issued earlier this month showed recurrent expenditures projected at 2.27 trillion shillings, or that is roughly 16.2% of the gross domestic product in the 2022-2023 uh, fiscal year. So, you kind of get a point about why, the kind of borrowing we're doing. And also, is Kenya spending too much? I mean, you've already seen, you've already looked at the figures at about, how our recurrent expenditure looks like. And of course, if we are actually borrowing to sustain our recurrent expenditure, that kind of gives you, like an idea that, okay, we may just be living, beyond our means. And of course, you have seen what our current president Ruto has said. Okay, and also just take a look at this excerpt from Spice FM. This is former presidential aspirant Jimmy Wanjigi, who actually did an audit last year of Kenya's debt between, that's I think, the year 2013 to the current year. Just check this out.
For every 100 shillings, right, take 100 shillings, government is now, according to the estimates, let's assume between now and June, I don't think they'll get to 2.1. Our calculation is that it's going to be about 80% of our tax revenue is going to go to debt. So for every 100 shillings, 80 shillings goes to debt. Right? So we're left with 20. 50 shillings goes to salaries.
But there's only 20 shillings left.
Yes. So calculate it. So we are minus what?
30.
Minus 30. Right. You have 30 shillings that goes to counties. Okay. And you have about 35 shillings that goes to what you call OPEX. Making sure police have petrol in their cars and so on and so forth.
And ministers.
Yes. And all of these things. What are we at?
Minus 95.
Very good. So tell me what room we have to borrow. We have borrowed over 100% of our revenue.
So finally, what should Kenya do right now? Because it seems like, we have a looming crisis that's about to happen. And, unless we do something right now, we are going to have it rough. Okay. So of course, the usual ways. First of all, we need to expand, our revenue base. Of course, there are a lot of tax incentives that go up to, I think, 1.1 billion. Incentives are like exemptions. There are things that are not taxed out here. So, and are some of the things that are incentivized. Sorry. So yeah. So one of the things is maybe reduce some of the tax exemptions that we have, for special groups or what, and of course, increase the revenue base. Of course, the president has also said that we are looking at ways to cut around 300 billion Kenya shillings from recurrent expenditure. And of course, thirdly, we also need to reduce our borrowing appetite. Just of course, look again at Business Daily right now. The National Treasury says the government will need up to 2026 to dispense with huge debt repayments and calibrate Kenya's economy back to a sustainable path. So as a result, in the 2023 medium-term debt strategy, that is Professor Njogona Ndongo, who is the Treasurer for CS, has proposed that the government must immediately tame its borrowing appetite, regretting that even the loan limits of 720.1 billion for the financial year 2023 are veer off the path to sustainability. So he recommends that an annual borrowing limit of only 580.9 billion shillings instead, which will need significant revenue mobilization to achieve. Yeah, so of course, from that you see that, okay, we have these ways, just we need to, cut spending, cut expenditure, and of course, increase the, tax revenue base. So, what is the uptick? Just going, if you have been watching this video up to this end, you have seen that we are in a huge debt crisis, and of course the future looks rather bleak. Yeah, but of course, in my opinion, if we have some discipline, of course, and cut spending, and just as we have said, of course, increase the revenue base. We also need to tame things like rampant corruption, because a lot of money gets lost within have like a lot of bureaucracy in the system of governance that we have in Kenya. So if we have a way to make the government leaner, of course, there are also other posts in the government that are really, really not needed, and a lot of money gets lost through those channels. So we just need to have some discipline, take corruption. And of course, next year, that is 2024, we have that Eurobond, that is maturing. If we just have a way, whether it is restructuring or maybe getting more loans so that to finance that other loan for the Eurobond. If we manage 2024, 2026 looks, rather good. But for now, we don't know. That's the thing. So right now, the current government in place has no option, but you just have to make it good for the citizen. So that is just what I can say for this video. Again, once again, thank you for watching this video. I remind you once again, it takes a lot of time and resources to make these videos, and a lot of strength. It's not easy just being in front of a camera and doing this thing. So please, just like this video, and of course, subscribe to Wikicode, because we'll be doing a lot of finance topics, education topics, and technology topics. Yeah, see you in the next video.